The Richard Roeper Show is brought to you by AmericanEagle.com Studios. The digital landscape is changing rapidly, and to compete in today's online business environment, you need that experienced partner. Since 1995, AmericanEagle.com has partnered with companies of all sizes, offering web design, web development, e-commerce, mobile apps, and digital marketing to drive your overall business's success, because they believe that today's online world is your online opportunity. Visit AmericanEagle.com to get started today. That's AmericanEagle.com, AmericanEagle.com. It's Oscar nominations day as I record this, and we'll be sending this out to you all very soon. They moved the Oscar nomination announcement back twice, a couple of days and a couple more days, because of the ongoing and tragic and massive and horrific wildfires taking place in the Los Angeles area. We're going to talk about the nominations in just a second. Also going to talk a little bit about, some people are saying, should they have even continued with the Oscars? And at first, I was one of those people early on when the fires were breaking out saying, maybe push these back to the summer or move them to New York. When I suggested possibly moving them to New York, I did hear from a lot of people in Los Angeles who work in support services, catering and construction and security, saying, hey, man, we would love to get the chance to get some of those jobs that come with the Oscars every year. A lot of behind the scenes work, florists, makeup artists, the hotels get a lot of business. And that was a great point. And I do think they made the right decision to go ahead as scheduled with the Oscars. And so far, I think the Academy is doing a very good job of showing great respect for what is happening, and they're going to adjust the Academy Awards a little bit. No best song performances this year. They're going to do more of a behind-the-scenes thing. And there's going to be numerous references to the fires and the heroics of the firefighters and the rescue workers and all the support people who have pitched in to help. And I'm sure some fundraising elements as well. The Academy has already donated, I think, more than $1 million. Just a little quick history for you guys, because people ask me things, that's what the email's for and all the other social media stuff. Has this happened before? Have there been delays in the Academy Awards and other American pop culture, sports, and entertainment events? And yes, going back to 1938, they had these two huge Pacific storms that raged through Los Angeles, record floods. So they pushed the Oscars back a week in 38. And then 30 years later, in 1968, it was time for the 40th Academy Awards. And they were postponed just a couple of days after the assassination of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. That took place on April 4th, that horrific moment in American history. And many of the presenters and possible honorees were actually going to attend some of the services for Dr. King. So they pushed it back a few days. This is something I only recently found out, and I find this to be fascinating. During World War II, the ceremonies continued. Now, Hollywood in World War II, as I'm sure a lot of you know, there were a lot of films. I don't want to say they were propaganda, but they were pro-American films, of course. And a lot of major stars enlisted were in the Army, in various branches of the armed forces. The ceremonies themselves were toned down. They had more like a banquet type feel to them. Instead of formal attire, more like business casual, as we'd call it today. And if you were in the armed services, you would wear your uniform if you were an actor or producer, director or editor, whatever the case may be. And metal was in such demand during World War II that the statuettes themselves were made of plaster. They were plaster statues, plaster Oscars. And then eventually recipients were able to receive the traditional metal Oscars. In 81, Oscars were delayed for 24 hours after the assassination attempt on President Ronald Reagan. He was actually going to be a part of the opening of the show because, of course, his Hollywood history. In 2003, I was there at the Academy Awards, and that was a very different Academy Awards because 3 days before the 2003 Oscars, the United States invaded Iraq. That invasion of Iraq, there was a lot of controversy, and there were a lot of protests and speeches made at those Oscars, but there was also a lot of talk about delaying the Oscars. They didn't. They proceeded as scheduled, but there was no red carpet parade. And some big names bowed out just because of security concerns or just uncertainty, or they just didn't want to be seen celebrating after we had just invaded Iraq. Of course, and then we just had, all this stuff is real world stuff that, of course, the Oscars are nothing in comparison. We already know that. But you have to say that just so we're on the record, so I don't hear from folks saying, I can't believe you're even talking about the Oscars. It reminds me when I was writing a general interest column, if I'd write something light, people would say, there's a lot of serious shit going on in the world. You got to write about that. And then if I'd write about serious stuff, they'd be like, come on, man, I'm coming to your column for some escapism. Anyway, in 2021, really, that was 4 years ago now, the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, remember they tried the ceremony at Union Station in Los Angeles, which is a famous movie location. A lot of famous movies have been shot there. They had the small socially distanced crowd in attendance and remote appearances, and the technology didn't work great. It was kind of strange. They did the best they could, but it really didn't work as a television presentation. There's also been concerns in the sporting arena after the assassination of John F. Kennedy. I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the NFL, they postponed their games for a week, the first Sunday after JFK was assassinated, and then there were the services, et cetera. And then it was back to the NFL. During World War II, there was a lot of discussion, especially about baseball. And I know President Roosevelt and then President Truman, they wanted Americans to, the classic thing, like, let's not let evil triumph over the great American pastimes. Let's have let's have baseball games to go to. Let's do our best to keep things going in America. I know they did the same in London, even as like horrific bombings were occurring. They tried to do what they could to keep things going. So now we've got 2025 and these horrible wildfires. The Oscars are going to go on as scheduled. So why don't we get a little into the nominees, folks? Got my list here. They did the usual thing. Bowen Yang and Rachel Sennett were presenting the awards. They always do it like at 5:30 a.m. Los Angeles time, right? And usually it's in a fairly empty, almost nearly empty arena of the venue, and you just hear a few random bits of clapping. They had a bigger crowd today. It's still interesting to me that the Academy is still doing that 5:30 a.m. LA time deal. They were at the Samuel Goldwyn Theater, the Academy's Samuel Goldwyn Theater, which is in Beverly Hills. And they just kind of, you get a few jokes from the presenters. They always have, some pretty cool folks presenting. And they try to keep things light and make jokes about how they hope they can pronounce all the names right. And then they just kind of read through it. And there's more production value and drama when they unveil like the brackets for the NCAA, right? Because they'll go to the schools and show people reacting. Or now the NFL, or the NCAA, the college football playoffs and the Heisman Trophy ceremony. All these sporting things have figured out ways to make it like an hour-long special. And the Academy, for whatever reason, they just read off the nominees. They don't show clips. That's it. And then they just say goodbye and we'll see you, on March 2nd. That's it. But that's what they're doing. I think they started doing this, the 5:30 a.m. thing, so they could be on the morning network shows. And in a way, it kind of works now because of social media and the immediacy of it. So, you get reaction all day long from folks like me and reaction from the nominees. Normally, you would see on a lot of the network shows and other entertainment channels or even CNN or whatever. I don't know because it's still Thursday morning as I record this, guys. But you'd get a lot of remotes with some of the nominees, or sometimes if someone for sure was going to be a nominee and they'd have them in New York backstage at the Today Show or Good Morning America, whatever the case may be, and bring them out. I think with the nominees this year, that's a little tricky too. You don't want to look like you're celebrating too much. You issue a statement. Of course, you're very grateful for the nomination, but all of this is kind of everybody treading lightly. But the awards are going to go on March 2nd, as I mentioned. They're starting them an hour earlier, which I'm fine with because I got to write stuff on deadline. So where I'm at in Chicago, it could be 6 p.m., 7 p.m. New York time, and then it's late afternoon in Los Angeles. And who knows, wherever you may be, you get a chance to see it. I got the whole list of nominations. Yeah, we've also gotten to the point now, of course, where we know what's going to happen in advance because of other award shows and polling and all of that stuff. But still some surprises. I want to read something real quick. This is Steve Pond, who's a terrific writer, mentioning how last year we had so much fun with Barbenheimer, and this year it's Dune and Wicked dunked. I think Steve would be the first time know what's calling it dunked. Will we say dunk it or dunk it? But Emilia Perez got 13 nominations. That's the most ever for a foreign language film. I think it's one shy of the all-time record. 13 nominations in a lot of categories. And of course, that's a French-made Spanish language musical about a transgender Mexican drug lord. And that's kind of the most honored film. It's a great film, by the way. It's way off the rails and batshit crazy, but I kind of loved it. Love seeing some of the nominations in that for that film. And then there's also going to be some controversy, I'm sure. Sebastian Stan and Jeremy Strong received nominations for The Apprentice. Sebastian Stan playing the young Donald Trump, Jeremy Strong playing his sleazy mentor, Roy Cohn. And you might recall, Variety does this actors on actors thing. It's very cool. I think they've been doing it for about 10 years now, where actors talk to other actors about their craft. And it's always really fascinating. I mean, it's a love fest. No one's like, I thought you were kind of miscast in that one film, but it's still interesting. And Sebastian Stan talked about how no actor would do it with him because this was, I think, right around election time, and they didn't want to be perceived as somehow supporting Donald Trump. They were afraid of backlash, and that's madness. I think that actually the fact that nobody did it resulted in more positive publicity than Sebastian Stan could have possibly have gotten. Not that he did it on purpose, but it got people talking about the film again. I thought the film was terrific.
Yes.
Hello, this is Donald Trump from Mr. Cohn. Thank you so much.
Donald who?
Roy Cohn, nice to meet you.
The Roy Cohn from all the papers? Yeah, you're brutal.
Guilty as charged.
Roy Cohn is a crook. He's been indicted 3 times.
I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. People, they hire me because I'm a winner.
How do you win?
The first rule is the simplest. Attack, attack, attack.
It's going to be the finest building in the country, in the world. It's going to be spectacular.
Rule 2, admit nothing, deny everything.
You think you can beat the U.S. government?
Rule 3, no matter what happens, you claim victory and never admit defeat.
It's called, The Apprentice was kind of a tricky title. It's a great title in a way because it's about Donald Trump in his apprenticeship when he was coming up like in the 80s and 90s in New York City. But so I think some people thought, is this going to be a movie about that freaking show? Is it a documentary about the reality show or about Donald Trump? It's a work of fiction, but I thought it did a really strong job of showing Donald Trump as this young and dashing and handsome and charismatic, but also manipulative and duplicitous and greedy and ruthlessly ambitious real estate developer, and how that all happened. And then Roy Cohn, of course, one of the most notorious figures in American history, going all the way back to the witch hunts of the 50s, who became a mentor for Donald Trump. And then Trump kind of out Roy Cohn and dumped him when he no longer needed him, when he kind of surpassed him in the power broking. So great performances in a really strong movie. And I shouldn't have to say this, but I think I do have to say this, just because a movie is about somebody you don't like or you really detest doesn't mean it can't be a great movie. Great movies have been made historically for 100 years about terrible people. And terrible movies have been made about great people. Just because a movie's about a sinner doesn't mean it shouldn't be lauded, and just because a movie's about a saint doesn't mean it should be celebrated. So it'll be interesting. I don't think either one of them are going to win just because those categories are so strong. We're going to go through some of those categories in a second. And Trump, in the meantime, of course, he is ripped. He hates the movie. I don't think he actually saw it, but he says it's the worst thing ever. So I know those two films are going to get, The Apprentice and Emilia Perez, are going to get a lot of attention. Let's take a break and talk about Portillo's, and we'll go through some of the major categories. And we have to use the term snubs and surprises. We'll be right back. All right, kids, let's talk about Portillo's. It's one of my favorite places to eat on the planet Earth. My delivery history will bear this out. I also happen to live within walking distance of one of the Chicago Portillo's. Yes, that's right. I'm that lucky. It is amazing. You could order from the restaurant or the drive-thru, but if it's not near you, you can go to portillos.com, and order. They got French fries. They got all kinds of comfort food, the amazing hot dogs, the Italian beef, the Italian sausage, some really good salads, by the way, if you want to take it a little bit easy, because you want to have a little bit room left for the chocolate cake, the best chocolate cake in the world. Think about it. Portillos.com, Portillos.com. That's how you spell it, Portillos.com. Okay, the 97th, right? 97th Annual Academy Awards. Boy, they'll have will they have a celebration in 3 years or what? But these are the 97th Academy Awards. They will be March 2nd, as we mentioned, from Hollywood. The nominations, I thought, were pretty strong, actually very strong. I like some of the surprises, too. And again, it's like when you say, well, someone got snubbed, then you're saying somebody else didn't deserve it. And that's a tricky thing. And we shouldn't compare performances. But of course, that's the whole idea of these trophy award ceremonies is we are comparing and competing movies and stacking them against each other, even though it's kind of a crazy thing. Because I know some people have said, unless all 5 actors perform the same role on stage in front of everybody, and even then, it's very subjective. But anyway, that's the way it works, you know? So I have my list here. Yeah, I'm shuffling through all my notes here because it's still easier to do it on paper, I swear to God, than it is on the screen. So I would say right now, and we will closer to the Oscars, we'll do a whole ballot thing and predictions and preferences. But I would say right now, the front runners in the 4 acting categories would be Adrian Brody, Demi Moore, Zoe Saldana, Kieran Culkin, and The Brutalist. But Ray Fiennes could win for Conclave. Mikey Madison for Honora. Ariana Grande, don't count her out, super popular. Guy Pearce, who was so good in The Brutalist. And I think The Brutalist is going to win Best Picture, but Honora and Conclave are among the 10 nominees. I think they have the best chance. Those are your front runners. So a lot of people were surprised that Jamie Lee Curtis wasn't nominated for The Last Showgirl. If you haven't seen The Last Showgirl, that's the Pamela Anderson movie where she plays the Vegas showgirl who has been in a Jubilee type show. There was a show in Vegas called Jubilee for years. And now the show is closing and she's got to figure out what to do with her life. And Jamie Lee Curtis plays her best friend, who was kind of her mentor, who has moved on from showgirl status to cocktail waitressing in a kind of mid-level at best Vegas casino. And it's a really, really strong performance. I think in a lot of this, politics are involved and whose turn is it to win and who has been recognized recently. And Jamie Lee Curtis won the Oscar just, 2 years ago, right? For Everything Everywhere All at Once, just a couple of years ago. She also picked up an Emmy for The Bear. So even though Jamie Lee Curtis is universally loved, I think in Hollywood, everybody loves Jamie Lee, and she comes from Hollywood royalty. I think the feeling there might have been like, she's really had this great moment, which has been more like a couple of years. So she didn't get a nomination for Best Supporting Actress. I thought Angelina Jolie was going to get nominated for her performance as Maria Callas in Maria. It's a biopic of a famous showbiz figure, showing them at a crucial, last days of their lives. Hollywood loves movies about entertainers, even though in this case we're not talking about a Hollywood entertainer necessarily, but a great singer.
Tell me how it felt to be on stage.
An exaltation, an intoxication. I thought the stage itself would burn.
Sometimes this thing happens, the thing that's happening right now.
There's a point where self-confidence becomes a kind of insanity.
How is that for a position for the piano, madam?
It's not right. But I'm nice, so leave it.
Perhaps we could speak of your life away from the stage.
There is no life away from the stage.
My life is opera. There is no reason in opera.
I thought she was great in it, but movie got good, but not great reviews and didn't make a lot of money. Not that always plays into it, but it kind of was under the radar. A lot of people thought Selena Gomez might be nominated for Emilia Perez. She wasn't. She's so good. I know she's been nominated for things for Only Murders in the Building too. So Selena's going to be just fine. I could definitely see, people saying that she should have been nominated there. I do like the fact that I mentioned Sebastian Stan and Jeremy Strong nominated for Best Supporting Actor for The Apprentice. Fernanda Torres, who won a Golden Globe for I'm Still Here, got an Oscar nod for Best Lead Actress, which was not a slam dunk, but I'm so pleased to see this. This is a historical biopic set in the Brazil of the early 1970s under the military dictatorship, based on a true story. It's a film that's rolling out still. I don't know if it's available where you're at right now. It's starting to get more play. It'll get more play. This is the kind of film that will get more exposure because it was also nominated for Best Picture, Best International Feature, but also for Best Picture. But I'm really very psyched to see that Fernanda Torres got the Best Actress nomination. I think she should win. I don't think she will, but it wouldn't be the biggest upset of all time because I think a lot of Academy members now, most of them, in the Academy, we've talked about this, has grown to, I think, 10 or 11,000 members from the 6,000 and 7,000 it used to be. And it is more diverse. It does have more women, and it does represent the votership and the viewership of movies worldwide. And I think if more Academy members who haven't yet maybe seen this film, if they see it, I do think it's going to win for Best International Feature. But I think that Fernanda Torres has a chance to win for Best Actress. And as I mentioned, Amelia Perez getting a lot of nominations. Kieran Culkin and Jeremy Strong, both from Succession, are in two different movies, of course, but they're both in the supporting actor category. Nicole Kidman didn't get any love for Baby Girl. I thought Baby Girl was a strong film. Bold. It reminded me sort of those lurid thrillers of the 90s and 80s, but with a little more substance to it. Daniel Craig, a lot of people thought he might get nominated for Queer. I didn't love the movie. I loved the performance. This Conclave picture, it got 8 nominations. And, it's interesting to me because Conclave, it's pure fiction, but it's about, the election of the next pope, right? And all the politics. And it's got great performances in it from Ralph Fiennes and Stanley Tucci and Isabella Rossellini, who was nominated as well. But it's such melodramatic, over the top. And listen, as a guy, I brought up attended Catholic schools for years and years and years. I'm not offended because it showed corruption in politics in the church. God knows that really exists. But it just had one ridiculous twist after another, right up until the final moment. It makes the Knives Out movies seem like documentaries. I'm a little shocked that it's so lauded by so many critics and audience. Well, people love that they love. September 5th, September 5, I guess is the official title for it. September 5. This is the film that is about the 1972 Olympics in Munich and the terrorist murders, but it's told from the standpoint. And there have been films like Munich, which was about the aftermath and documentaries, but September 5 is all about how ABC Sports covered the unfolding drama in real time. And I thought it was one of the best movies about television news journalism ever made. We're in the control room almost in real time. I mean, the drama itself in real life unfolded over almost an entire day, about 22 hours. So they compressed it, of course, to 90 minutes or so. But just the look at how news was covered in the early 70s and the control rooms and the cameras and the technology and all of that.
Do you hear that?
Were those gunshots?
What's the situation?
The police are reporting that armed terrorists have attacked the Israeli athletes.
There's a hostage situation going on right now in the Olympic Village.
ABC wants news to take over.
Your sports, you're in way over your head.
Our job is to tell the story of these individuals whose lives are at stake.
It's not okay. We made it worse.
It's a madhouse down here.
They know the whole world is watching. If they shoot someone on live television, whose story is that? Is it ours or is it theirs?
Brilliantly done. And a lot of it is about how the fact that this was ABC Sports covering this. And it wasn't the first time we had live coverage of the Olympics, but we had much more than we ever had before. And of course, the fact that it was in West Germany, only one generation removed from World War II. And then you had this horrific attack on the Israeli athletes and the murders. But it was the movie's concerned with the coverage of the story. And ABC News, of course, saying, we'll take this from you guys in sports. And ABC Sports saying, we're 100 yards from where it's happening. We're going to keep this. So it really does a brilliant job of that. I thought it would get nominated for Best Picture. It didn't. I think that's a mistake, but you're going to get this. That's the thing about the Oscars. You got 10 Best Picture nominees, which means five directors whose films were nominated for Best Picture won't get a nomination, and there were some snubs, if you will, in that category. All of the acting categories, and it's great to see, especially when we're talking about lead actress, supporting actress. There's always been an abundance of roles for the guys. We know that. There have been some years where it's been pretty thin when it comes to especially lead actors, supporting actress, again, because a lot of times, huge films, there's no lead actress. It's a supporting actress. But there were 10 performances in each category that easily could have been nominated. So overall, I give the Academy kudos. I think, as I mentioned, on the more important subject of how to handle things during this terrible crisis, this ongoing crisis in Southern California. They're doing it the right way. And yes, the show should go on to invoke the cliche with the proper tone, and it feels like they're going to do that. So that's our look at the nominees. As I mentioned, we're about 6 weeks away from the Oscars. So last week in February, somewhere around there, we'll go through the ballot and do all our predictions, and I'll tell you guys about a contest where you can beat the critic. That's me. Outguess me and win a prize. And it's really not that hard now. Predict me. Trust me. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I'm Richard Roeper, and we'll